Hello, and this is Fiona Cuthbertson coming from the pod to record Off the Cuff. Today we're lucky enough to be joined by Dean Fox. Dean is one of the leading mindset and performance coaches for the professional services industry and founder of the 90-day mindset game plan, which has enabled business people all over the world to conquer fear, self-doubt and confusion. At the end of 2022, he was diagnosed with Motor Neurone Disease and has since combined his work as a business coach with becoming an advocate for those suffering with this disease. Welcome, Dean.
Thank you.
So, firstly, can you tell us how you got to where you are now?
So I think the first thing is I had no intention of doing what I do now. When I reached what was the top of my profession, I was a sales manager for a major company in the UK, and I felt like my next win then would be if I could do it for myself. So I set up my own business and had the same success. So in about 2005, my wife and I started investing in property, and that went really well. And so in about end of '06, I left my corporate job and we went into that full time. We all know what happened in 2008, and that had a major impact on our business. Following 2 years got harder and harder, and then in 2010 we were in a really bad car accident, and we spent about 12 months after that recovering and not being able to work. And through that period, I ended up bankrupt. We lost the business, really withdrawn, depressed, and suicidal. And I realized invest in myself. And that really was the spark that kind of led me down this path.
And what's the most important lesson you've learned over your career and in life?
The biggest thing, and something I live by every day, is no thing has any meaning save for the meaning that I give it. So when anything happens, I realize it's only my interpretation of the meaning that makes me feel a certain way, and I can change that at any point.
That's a really interesting way of looking at things because obviously in life people give other people far too much control over their own mindset, don't they?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so what underrated tools do you think are indispensable for your work and in order to help you keep that mindset going?
The biggest thing for me is what I call good question. Truly always said, if you want better results, you ask better questions. So I try and continue to ask myself questions that force me to look at myself and everything that's happening so I can look at it from a different perspective.
And what makes you different from others in your field who are also giving people this kind of advice?
The biggest thing for me is that I focus only on the underlying reason. So unless you can work on that, everything else is just temporary. So often people use tools or systems, but it will last for a while and they fall back to doing the same things they were doing before. Whereas I like to focus on what are the reasons they're doing them in the first place.
And what is the first win that you had that make you confident that you were right regarding your strategy?
First of all, when people recognized that I was changing and asked what I was doing, I had a major impact on my own family. So my wife was diagnosed as dyslexic at age 48, but she was a published author, and my two sons have gone on to become professional sports people, and that, I believe, is down to the work I did and the info I could pass on to them.
You mentioned earlier on that things didn't always go right. What mistakes did you make then that you wouldn't make now?
There's a huge difference between I am a failure or I have failed.
What other advice would you give to your younger self at the start of your career?
I think the real thing is everything is temporary. Nothing is permanent. How you feel today can change tomorrow, and you have way more power than you think you have. And don't let anything stop you.
Who in your profession do you really admire and have you learnt from?
Obviously, the main names are people like Tony Robbins, Bob Proctor, Les Brown, for different reasons. Anyone who achieves something, I have huge admiration for because it's easy to get a knockback and quit rather than keep pushing to get where you really want.
Obviously, your work helps people to go beyond themselves and succeed more in their work and their mindset. That includes obviously being a leader in business. What does great leadership look like?
It's a mixture of several things. I think to be a leader, you have to be able to inspire and motivate people around you, but you also need to care about them. If they don't respect you, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. I think when you're a leader, that has to be your number one priority. You should care about your journey, but also the people that you are leading.
You and I first met almost 2 years ago now when you mentored me on the Santander Business Mentoring Scheme. And it's actually down to you that this podcast does exist because you taught me to again go beyond myself. In that time, you have unfortunately had a diagnosis of motor neuron disease. This must have been imaginably difficult and hard for you and the family. Can you tell us a bit about how it all happened?
So I started with some symptoms way back at the end of 2022, early 23, but I didn't connect them together. So I had some problems with my throat and voice, and after several visits to the GP and referred to hospital, they couldn't find anything wrong. And then I was on holiday in the US where our son lived in July last year, and his wife is a nurse. And when we arrived at their home, she immediately said, "You need to see a neurologist because I think whatever's going on is to do with your brain in some way, a minor stroke or something." And so we went to see a private specialist while we were out there, and he was the first person to say it could be motor neuron disease. And when I came back to the UK, I was admitted to hospital for tests, but when they confirmed it was motor neuron disease, despite the fact I probably had a good idea by then, I still wasn't prepared for when they actually told me what it was. I don't think you can ever prepare for something like that.
Absolutely not. And so, can you tell us how this has affected your view on life?
my view hasn't really changed. I try every day and focus on what I can do rather than what I can't, and try and make the best of every day and the time that I have. The only thing is, I get a bit frustrated and I get more tired these days than I did before. So I have to try and manage that better. And in general, I try and still focus on all the positive things I have in my life.
Have you managed to keep working with your clients?
I have some, but I've also had to recognize that there are limits to what I can do. But in terms of business, I brought in a new partner to try and take on some of the delivery of workshops and programs that I can no longer do.
Do you think the government does enough to support people who are ill?
I think there's two key things, and especially in terms of MND. The first one is there isn't enough awareness from GP through to hospital specialists about MND and the symptoms anywhere between a year or 2 years to be diagnosed. And so I think a lot more needs to be done to try and shorten that diagnosis time frame. And the second thing is with things like MND, most people don't live for more than around 2 years from diagnosis. So I think the ability to shortcut the regulatory process for trial rules should be looked at so that people can get a chance to be a part of the research that might help other people further down the line.
So, what do you think should be made more public about this disease that's often overlooked?
I think people like Robert Study Weir, Ed Slater, Stephen Darby have all done an amazing job of raising the general awareness of MND. But I think the biggest thing for me is that symptoms can change really fast with MND, and it requires lots of moving parts, everything from medical support through to adaptation to the home, and the time frame for lots of those is quite long, and most people, like I said, don't live more than 2 years. So I think that people need to understand what it's like living with MND on a daily basis, so people understand why we need things to happen faster.
So, if you had one call to action for the Secretary of State for Health, what would it be?
Right now, I think the biggest thing is there's a drug which is in use for cancer patients in the UK. It was tried 2 years ago for MND patients, and the headline results were very positive. But we are 2 years later on, and we still don't have the full data to know whether that drug is something that can affect patients with MND, and the link between the government and the pharma companies. They need more pressure to release that info so that we can either get treatment or we can move on and look for something else.
As you say, it's so aggressive, it needs to be dealt with now. There is no time to waste. And with that, we come to the end of another fascinating interview. So, Dean, thank you for sharing your journey with us and also the mental strength that you have shown with respect to your diagnosis. And thank you to the listeners who've hopefully enjoyed the show as much as we've enjoyed making it. As always, if you have any questions regarding the podcast today, please feel free to comment. If you think it's worth coming back, please like and subscribe. If you feel you need something to tide you over to the next podcast, please buy my book Party Games on Amazon. And on that note, I'll see you next time. Hope you have a good week, one and all.